Hi, I'm Lucy Neave and I'm reading from my novel Believe in Me, which was published by UQP in August 2021. The novel is about a daughter imagining her mother's life. I'm going to read from chapter 11, which is when the mother, whose name is Sarah, is in an unmarried mother's home in Sydney. And unmarried mother's homes basically meant that you were forced to adopt out your child. So just reading from the beginning of chapter 11. Miranda, the girl who scrubs surgical instruments with Sarah, has a book. She found it in a storeroom where the trainee midwives have naps. Sarah and Miranda, whose due date is also fast approaching, sit up at night on the hallway windowsill. Miranda looks at the pictures while Sarah reads the text. Much of it is written in medical jargon, but this doesn't dissuade Sarah, who's hungry to read anything besides the Australian Women's Weekly, the only reading material available in the lounge downstairs. Miranda grimaces at the pictures of babies presenting bottom first or with the cord wrapped around their necks. Sarah reads about labour, about how the first stage can last for days, especially for those who've never given birth before. She reads about how it might happen, how it ought to happen, and files it away in the back of her mind. At night, when she can't sleep, she talks to the baby. She can't raise the child's hopes. She says, "I don't belong here. I must go back to my own mother. That's where they'll send me." At the same time, she thinks, why didn't I shake John by the shoulders and yell, "I'm taking the baby, he's mine"? For a few days, she feels pain in the morning that comes and goes. She wears a navy blue skirt that she finds in one of the wardrobes, thinking it'll be harder for the matron to tell if it's stained if her waters break. She stuffs the jumpsuit Myra gave her into her bra. She knows that the baby may never wear it, but she carries it against her breasts, telling herself that it's a talisman, even though it's uncomfortable. She's read about Braxton Hicks' contractions and waits to see if the pain worsens. By mid-afternoon, it fades. The matron makes her lie down in an examination room on the first floor of the hospital. Only 2 trainee midwives are in there watching. The matron pokes the baby and says, "I think we're going to have to take it out." Then she says, "That's right. You're that hillbilly American who can't write her own name. Have it your own way." Under her breath, Sarah says, "I'll try." One of her calculations is that if she's meek and well-behaved, maybe they'll let her hold the baby. They'll let her look into the child's eyes, wrap his fingers around hers. She'll tell him that she loves him. This love will sustain him. He'll feel it, even if he doesn't know where it comes from. What she dreads is that she'll have an anaesthetic for the cesarean. They'll take the baby away and she'll never see his face. She doesn't say anything about this to the matron, because if she asks, it's more likely that the matron will thwart her. 2 days of intermittent pain, then the real pain starts. She thinks she might be able to avoid having her belly sliced open if no one knows she's in labour, so she hides her discomfort. Her mum popped out babies as though they were Aggies, her dad had said. Sarah remembers him saying this when he'd had a couple of beers and was sitting on the back porch. The late afternoon sun was shining in a broad yellow path on the dirt. As Sarah's breath comes fast, she imagines him with her saying, "You'll pop that baby out like a marble." It lasts all day. She might have the baby easily when the time comes, but in the meantime the pain is fierce. She's scrubbing instruments on her own because Miranda's in labour and hasn't been able to hold the agony at bay. Who can blame her? Sarah stands up from her stool and walks around the room to stop herself from crying out. As the day wears on, walking isn't enough, and she has to get down on all fours, like a dog. It's so bad that she vomits in the sink, then washes it down. When bundles of bloody instruments are delivered by an orderly, she sits on the stool and smiles, and hopes that a contraction won't arrive until he's gone. Around 4, a new girl appears. Sarah's feeling shaky now. When a contraction comes, her own breath drowns out every other sound. She wants to push. The girl says, "I came to help. They're complaining upstairs that you're too slow." Her face is hard. Your skirt's wet. It's the same navy skirt. Sarah's been wearing it for days. By now the pain is frightening, as if a piece of wire is being tightened around some inside part of her. With each contraction, the wire grows tighter. What should she be afraid of? The pain? Being cut open with the surgeon's knife? She doesn't know. By turns, she's scared and strangely calm. "Come upstairs," the new girl says. Her voice wavers. "Don't tell the matron," Sarah says. "Don't tell anyone. Just lead me to the obstetrics ward and I'll be all right." Is it very bad? In between contractions, the baby is starting to feel as if it's coming. Sarah says again, don't tell her. What should I say? Nothing, Sarah says, or I'll stay down here. And when they come for me, I'll tell them you kicked me in the stomach. The girl's eyes widen. Then she leads Sarah along hallways, around corners, upstairs. The floors are clean, but the paint is old, flaking in places, and the voices of the women and their families in this hospital, which is mostly for the poor and the unwed, are too loud. They bounce from the walls. Sarah might not have been able to find the way if not for the new girl. She's consumed by pain. Twice she stops and rests against the wall and even feels herself bear down on what's inside her. The girl leads her up some more stairs. A midwife shepherds her into a small room containing a bed with stirrups and tells Sarah to take off her underpants, climb up there, lie on her back, and they'll shave her soon. And then the doctor and the trainees will be along. The midwife says it's the last room left, that Sarah's lucky she doesn't have to have her baby in the hall because it's so busy tonight. From along the hall is the sound of Miranda crying and sometimes screaming, I'll bite you. Sarah hears her yell, get away from me. Or perhaps it's not Miranda. Perhaps it's a series of anguished voices, interweaving, rebounding from the hard surfaces of the ward. Sarah hears footsteps, all those midwives learning about third-degree tears and the wheeling of trolleys laden with gases to knock you out. If it weren't for Miranda and all the others, Sarah knows she would have attracted the matron's attention by now. It's 6 o'clock in the evening, and when the contractions ease up for a minute, she sees the blue evening sky outside. Then the pain is back and the midwife is gone. Sarah takes off her underpants, but she can't get onto the bed, can't put her feet in the stirrups. It would be too much effort. She's squatting on the floor. She can feel something heavy in the space between her legs. Although it feels inanimate, like a stone, it makes the top of her head tingle. When the midwife comes back, Sarah is still squatting on the floor. The skin between her legs is on fire. The midwife kneels beside her. Her eyes are large, dark, and there's something about the steadiness of her gaze that Sarah trusts. Do you want to feel the baby's head? The woman's voice is low. She places Sarah's hand between her legs. Sarah rests her hand there for a moment. Then the baby's head breaks through, and a moment later, its body. The midwife catches the infant. She has her fingers in the baby's armpits so that the head, that wet, dark head thing, never hits the floor. Sarah feels a wave of gratitude for this woman, this stranger, who catches her child. The baby's a girl, not a boy. Her eyes are wide open, her arms spread as though she's coming out dancing. It's the Moro reflex. The baby thinks she's falling, but Sarah doesn't know this. The baby has long arms, long legs. She inhales her first breath. Her eyes are wide, even though she's crying. Her skin is as pink as the inside of someone's mouth. Sarah lifts the infant from the midwife's arms, and the midwife lets her. Sarah looks down at the baby's open eyes, so dark that they're almost black. She kisses her thin, dark hair, still wet, and leans against the bed, holding the baby looking up at her. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to read.